In the mid-90s, there was a card game called Illuminati, which had an unusual system in comparison to other collectible card games. There is a power tree with your own main Illuminati in the center with various other lesser power groups branching off the main Illuminati. I had thought the game had some promise, although I had never played a game. The game had a few expansions released before it went extinct. Supposedly, it has been revived. This power tree structure is something that each player builds up independently. Their power trees do not intermingle. This kind of thing demands more play space, and Illuminati was specifically designed for 3 or 4 or more players. And that could be a lot of space. This is kind of an unfortunate starting point for a hypothetical game where a social media network has various elements mapped out as playable cards. In this case, YouTube is the social media network, and currently I'm just working on different channels as the base cards who are linked up into power trees. Currently, there is no actual playable system using these cards. If people believe there is a system, this is enough. The channel cards are getting numbers, and this means that they are eventually going to be part of some kind of system where, in theory, impartial play can be gone through and resolved. So this scarecrow system is just that, a scarecrow. Needless to say, the channels that I am familiar with are not necessarily that well known. There has been some controversial ideas that a channel like the Midas Touch Network is too left-wing to be really recognized by the mainstream media. These legacy media channels are actually not getting that many views, but supposedly they have a presence in workplaces, in homes of your parents or your grandparents, and at job sites and military bases, you name it. So they're more influential than you might think, just considering their numbers alone and the repeated adage that cable news networks and cable in general is dying out bit by bit. There is the support for these relics of the past, these fossils. Modern day social media networks want to support the idea of normalcy for the general public and the main investors and the, main controllers and owners at the company, so to speak. And this is going to be depicting a nation without strife about fundamental issues such as what is true and what is false. And the legacy media has failed to bring you true facts about, where is our environment heading and what's happening in the world. They miss some critical issues, or they just tell blatant lies just for the hell of it. So these examples can go on and on and on. I don't need to bury this kind of issue really that much. Let's just say this. One side cannot tolerate the heat like the other side. That is just too damn bad for one side. Does it make any sense to say that this is a conscious process? Perhaps not for you. In any case, there is the legal concept of public safety. If a person or thing poses a risk to public safety, then their innocence or guilt has little meaning in the face of danger. Let's take a closer look at these Illuminati, the card game. It was originally released in 1982 as a board game. This was before the concept of collectible trading card games existed. Magic the Gathering appeared just as soon as the technology was there to make this into an economically viable thing. The quality of the Illuminati cards was poor in the 80s and usually after this. There were no expansions at that time. Eventually, the Illuminati cards were re-released in the mid-90s because of the popular MTG Magic the Gathering game, and they had new art for the bare bones art that they originally had. They had the expansion called New World Order, released in the mid-90s. There was another expansion set after this called Assassins. This was the last expansion. Some actual conspiratorial theories have grown up around the Illuminati card game itself. I am really skeptical about these things, identifying it as wishful thinking on the part of people who may have a vested interest in pumping up the value of these cards. The Enough is Enough card from the Assassin set has a price on eBay of around $30 US for a mint condition original. This card, in the invented mythos of a meta-conspiracy around the Illuminati cards, supposedly has a dim sketch of Donald Trump, superimposed on surrealistic art, which looks like fractals and triangles, and an extension of an orange bar to the face's non-existent mustache. In the case of this card, its actual function does not seem to be readily understandable, and what happens instead is the amoral person could instead emphasize the flavor text of the card to hint at how this card plugs into human society in theory, at any time, at any place. Our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day. The July 13th assassination attempt on Trump spawned some conspiracy theories, which for one, I do not find convincing. By taking a look at the gunman Thomas Matthew Crooks, you could see that he could have an affinity for the Crookes tubes, which was an early form of radiation detector, which was theatrical. Some left-wing YouTubers have used footage from the shooting to try to prove that the shooting was somehow staged. Case in point, the protective detail surrounding Trump are supposed to have the training whereby once shooting starts, they are supposed to immediately shield Trump and instantly remove him from danger by moving him. What does this footage show? For a brief moment, Trump commanded his bodyguards to unshield his upper body so that he could give a salute by extending his arm out at a roughly 45-degree angle towards the crowd with his hands clenched in a fist. Did the crowd go wild? Well, this sounds like a total lack of discipline on the part of the bodyguards. They had no idea if the sniper had been killed yet, or even if there were multiple snipers. Celebrity culture had corrupted these people, and their normal responses were skewed towards the unsafe. So there is no conspiracy there. I think Trump did sustain damage to his ear, although the severity of this damage was exaggerated. I get the medical records have never really been released. Before this event, I had interpreted the Enough is Enough card through the lens of wishful thinking. Why would people think of Trump when they see this crude sketch? Some very unfortunate things can be said about this kind of speculation. Well, at this time, American law still protects this kind of speech. In theory, other cards from the Illuminati card game have had a supposedly real-world conspiratorial web spun around them. The terrorist nuke card supposedly depicts the 9/11 terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. Wouldn't a nuclear device render the World Trade Center as unrecognizable? Drama is supposed to trump realism. There is also the Pentagon attack card. This is supposed to mirror the attack on the Pentagon during 9/11. There are probably other cards besides this which are theorized to be foreshadowings of real events. Well, when you have a game which originated in the early 80s, enough time will pass to somehow make some kind of imaginative connections to real-world events for a few of these cards. This is more than 45 years. I get a sense of sarcasm and pity in my own voice when I speak of the Illuminati. Yes, there is the Illuminati card game, and there's the actual original Illuminati founded in 1776 in Bavaria. In theory, the Illuminati had a very liberal view of the equalities of men and women, and perhaps of people of different nationalities. Similar to what was happening in revolutionary America, there was a rejection of age-old superstitions, although there was, at times, the retention of a saying or word that was understood to be a reference to old questions about the origins of existence, which really cannot be answered with references to intelligence. People just wanted to get on with things, and they had the option of using a invented system of a prime mover that set things in motion and then afterwards had no input in the universe. This was literary fiction for the American revolutionaries and the original Illuminatis, who were living in a very different environment in comparison to the Americans. The Illuminati were surrounded by conservative and suspicious Europeans, and of course, the conspiratorial mode of life became necessary. In the modern world, many so-called modern commentators complain bitterly about the current-day American Republican Party's descent into a kind of concern where they refer to conspiracy as a defense mechanism to explain the failings of their candidates and projects. Conspiratorial ideation is supposedly always false or very rarely somewhat correct. Perhaps there is some truth to the conspiracy theory that has penetrated not just the lower class, but also more well-educated and wealthier constituency. The idea that the oil corporations have some unwholesome sway over society, making clean and green energy very difficult to bring to market at a large scale. Well, if you have multiple degrees in engineering, logistics, and mining, you could make some kind of sense of how these different sources stand up in a free market which does not take into account how greenhouse gas emissions are affecting the environment. In any case, sometimes conspiracies can be true, and although this may be only 1 out of 10,000 people who is involved in a transnational conspiracy. In actual fact, we are seeing the American Republicans going into conspiratorial territory with their president openly accepting bribes, establishing a cryptocurrency meme coin called World Liberty Financial, where just anyone can give him money in the hopes of influencing his behavior and, in consequence, American government policy. Some mainstream media outlets have covered this story. Nonetheless, there is still the idea that conspiratorial musings are a bad thing. Supposedly, this is only used by an uneducated and diseased minority group that may tolerate this kind of theorizing in order to explain their socio-economic circumstances. Universities themselves may come under fire during these musings because of a supposed lack of understanding, or perhaps, shall we say, that these people are not likely to go to a university, and in consequence, they feel jealous. Obvious question. Why would a world-ruling cabal encode their goals and methods in a card game? If you are still listening, you are probably understanding that the game's designer, Steve Jackson, had the freedom to design the game in such a way that it got a few people riled up to a certain extent for the purpose of creating profitability for the card game.